cardboard, like this glossy stuff with colors on it. Don't use that. Use the brown, just the straight brown stuff. And take the tape off of it.
Yeah. Really?
You might want to mention about rat lungworm.
Rat lungworm and slugs. I don't want to go into that too much because that's a whole big topic. But you know, properly washing your food. This website, whole website dedicated to it. The public health. So just make sure you're washing your food properly. To take care of that is the main thing.
I just want to clarify about the beds, about the cardboard mulching.
Yeah.
Okay, and here you say you put the mulch on top, but I thought in there you said you put the cardboard on top.
Well, cardboard's the bottom layer. Unless you're using a lot of really weedy stuff, and then you can use another. You can use a layer of cardboard over that.
Okay, so it's basically cardboard. You cut the weeds, you put the cardboard,
Yeah.
then you put the weeds on top. No, wait a minute.
Anything that goes above the cardboard,
Yeah.
you want to be weed free. You
Okay.
don't want it to be regrowing. You don't want it to be full of seeds.
Okay, so you put the. What do you? I mean, could you just say again which the layers are?
For sheet mulching.
Yeah.
Okay, so the sheet mulching, we're putting down some compost, manure, amendments, and then we're putting cardboard over that.
Okay.
And then we're putting mulch on top of that.
What about banana
Okay.
stalks in there?
Sure. Yeah, you can put all different kinds of things in there. I think we got the basics of sheet mulching. I want to move on. So we talked a little bit about how we can plant these beds. Different ways to plant those. Okay. There's a list here about key quick plants and where to plant them. So this has a lot to do with zones again, right? The annuals, the things that need more care closer in, things that need less care farther out. Also, I prefer to have lower plants close to the house and then graduating as you go out higher and higher. With the exception of maybe a couple trees strategically placed for morning, afternoon shade. Okay, so I don't really want to go through all of this. It's all there, pretty clear. Yeah?
Where are you getting your seed?
Where you're getting your seed. There was just a seed exchange at La Kea. Excellent place to get. There's seed exchanges. I've seen quite a few of them. Neighbors, exactly. People who have been growing stuff. There's people here like Lynn. She's been growing some varieties of plants here for how many years?
Well, here, 11.
Here, that you've kept and replanted the seeds, how many years?
8 years.
8 years. So these plants have had 8 years that she's been saving the seeds from them for them to adapt to this local climate. There's I think it's Inaola Seed Company. Those are some pretty good ones. Local stuff. Also, Echo. There's a link to them in the back as well. Has some seeds. Things based for the tropics. She has, KL has some good seeds, huh?
UH has some locally resistant stuff.
Yep.
They carry those. Up to the
UH
Bauer
has
exchange
some
at
locally
Hilo. You can
resistant
mail order.
seeds. You can even mail order them from them.
What about Seed Savers Exchange?
Seed Savers Exchange? Does Seed Savers Exchange have what? Have a presence here?
People that,
No.
There's this potentially a seed co-op starting, and we're just looking at that.
Okay, she's
There are
looking-
seed share stations. There's going to be one used to be at the Locavore store, and now Locavore moved to Hilo, so it'll be there. And then there's one in Hubby. So if people want to start another one here in Pahoa, then talk to me and we can figure out where that would
Okay.
be.
She's saying if people are interested in starting a seed share station here in Pahoa, that she's that Lynn is the person to talk to for that. There was a seed sharing booth at a Locavore store, which is now moved to Hilo, but those seeds will still be there. So the Locavore store in Hilo, they're moving to Bayfront in Hilo. I don't know their exact location, they're just moving. Arthur and Catalina, yeah. So those are just a few places to source seeds for locally grown plants. A lot of the stuff we're talking about, most of the stuff we're talking about, well, no, maybe not most. A lot of the stuff we're talking about can be grown from cuttings as well. So, and again, your neighbors are a great source for those. And also, when you go to get them for your neighbors, you can see all their little tricks on how they do things. Because that has been the most educational thing for me, is getting into other people's gardens. Every time I go into a garden, I learn something. Sometimes it might be what not to do. But I learned something, and those lessons are extremely important as well. Let's see. So as we're going out, we're getting taller things. Right, we don't want to put a coconut tree that's going to get 100 feet tall and 30 foot wide and drop coconuts, 15 feet from a house. It's going to cause problems. And coconut trees, you ever see pictures of coconut trees leaning out over the ocean? You know why they do that? To get the light. So if you plant a coconut tree like too close to your house, you've got a roof that reflects light, it's going to purposefully lean over your roof to get that light. So proper spacing, that's all written down there for you. So let's say we already have a garden or orchard. How do we make those more productive? Okay? So one of the first things to do, I feel, is to create an inventory. See what you have. Where are we now? Right? What do you have? Do you have year-round avocados? Do you have long season ulu? Do you have enough coconuts? Do you have enough bananas? Right? That's the very core. If you've got plenty of that stuff, then you're on the right track. If you don't, that's the first thing I would address, is getting those fruit trees, those very, very key fruit trees, in abundance.
Which, can you just say what those were again?
Banana or plantain, coconut, ulu, avocado. And these are all written down. This is in the top 10 list on the list here.
Okay.
So creating a map is very helpful for this as well, if you haven't already. And this doesn't have to be completely spatially accurate. What you do need to know is the distance between trees to each other. Okay, so you don't need to map out the edges of your entire, it's good if you can, but you don't have to. If you know the distances between your certain trees, between your house, you can and you don't have to be it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can at least get in the ballpark, you'll be all right. So creating the map, doing an inventory, seeing the places where we need to fill those gaps, okay? And then going about filling those. And not only in space gaps, but again, we talked about time gaps. So where are places where we can get some other crops in while maybe some of these other crops are maturing? Planting mulch crops, using mulch crops. How is that working for your place? Are the trees, do you feel like your trees are getting the fertility they need? Are they producing? Maybe there's a nutrient deficiency that they need. So you can do that from a soil test. You can also just, give them what you think they may need. Like, have you spread lime? When's the last time you spread lime? How often do people, who spreads lime here in some form, and how often do you do it? And how often would you say that you spread it on your place? Or 3 times a year? Twice a year?
Yeah.
Twice to 3 times a year?
It depends on the size chunk too, like the fine powdery limes go faster, something like oyster shell that's chunkier will last longer.
Sure,
Same
so
like
it depends on the size of it as well. If it's a larger chunk, it's gonna last longer, be slower release. Or if it's finer, it'll disintegrate faster.
Would you want to do that seasonally, like early summer instead of like in the middle of winter?
Is there a certain time that people like to do that?
I was told the best way to lime is lime about 2 weeks before you fertilize. It's kind of symbiotic.
I've heard something very similar. The liming 2 weeks before you fertilize is good. I'm not exactly sure the science behind that, but I've heard a similar thing.
Doesn't the yellowing of a plant indicate need for lime?
Yellowing is generally an indication for nitrogen. So pee on it. But if you feel like your orchard is neglected, if you haven't spread lime in a couple of years, that's probably the first place I would start. And then following 2 weeks after that with an application of fertilizer or compost even.
Another amendment, and I'd like to see if other people follow this,
Yeah.
is supposedly for citrus trees that coffee grounds are very good.
Coffee grounds for citrus trees. Anybody else here that coffee grounds are good for citrus trees? Yeah.
I just want to mention that a lot of times going by the color of the leaf is really hard to tell what the deficiency is, or
Yeah.
if you have a disease problem. And there's Scott Nelson at UH Hilo. If you just take a photo of it on your camera and send it in to him,
Oh, cool.
he'll tell you,
Oh.
like we had a boron deficiency and we didn't even have a clue that.
Cool. I've
So
been
he's
wondering about
really
that at my
great.
place actually. So she's saying that Scott Nelson at the University of Hilo.
He's at Hilo. And you can just Google and look for their roster.
I'm sorry. You can look at so Scott Nelson at University of Hilo. You can send him a photograph and he'll tell you your nutrient deficiency
Or disease.
or disease. Existing gardens and orchards. Oh, creating a calendar. Getting some kind of a schedule down so you know when the last time your trees have been given these special things. You know when the next time they're going to get fertilizer is. You know, trees. It's kind of like an animal. You know, it's like you have a dog. You feed your dog like every day, right? Well, if you have your plants and you don't feed them for months or years. What do you expect to happen? I mean, yeah.
When you use the Hawaiian planting daily chart,
The Hawaii planting charts,
Yeah.
I have used that a little bit. And I've also just recently been introduced to, it's called Stella Natura. And this old timer was telling me that the best time to weed whack is right after the full moon, a couple days after. And this other old timer was telling me about the Stella Natura calendar. And it perfectly coincided with the growth spurt towards the full moon. And then so cutting it right after it's had its growth spurt to stunt it back. That's really all I needed to have proof enough, that this stuff that it works. That the moon, other planets, these cycles have an influence on plants.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I definitely believe there's some truth to that stuff. I don't necessarily follow it strictly throughout the year. Coming into the rainy season, is a great time to plant most things. I want to thank everybody for taking part in the conversations as well and giving your feedback on different things. It's really, working together is how we're all going to make this happen. Let's see, what is it? The resiliency isn't about, it's not so much about diversity, it's about the beneficial interconnections between the parts. And this goes for plants, and this goes for us as well. So having things work together, you know, the plants work together, we work together. That's how it all happens. So, wow, we actually got through all that. So into the plants. So top 100 food plants. Top 100 food plants. You know, that's kind of a disclaimer, big disclaimer here. My top 100 food plants may not be your top 100 food plants, right? We all have different, every site is different. It's like every person is different. So this is going to be adjusted to wherever you are. I'm in Kapoho, and this list is pretty good. If you're above 1,000 feet, you're probably not going to be able to grow ulu or coconuts very well. So you're going to need other things to take those gaps. And some of the possibilities are, let's see, well, you've got the avocado still for oil, which is a good one. Peely nut could be a substitution for oil. Mac nut is another good oil crop. So there's so many different ways to look at these different plants, and it was really hard for me to settle on this format with what's the top plant and work down. But I did it because where do we start? If you're just starting, or if you want to maximize your production, your food production, and the resiliency of that food production, where do you start? And so that's why I settled on this format. But some of the other formats that I considered and I think would really be good things to see is the breaking things down into, well, here's your trees, right? Here's your bushes. Here's your small emergent herbs. Here's your ground covers. These things, but all of that information is listed in the size of the plant. Okay, so just pay attention to that and you'll be able to make your own sub-list inside here. So, if, for example, you have a spot, you know, where something could go, any number of certain things, that size could fit into that spot.
Malabar chestnut.
And we'll get to that. So we can also break things down into their nutritional content, right? Is it a carbohydrate? Is it a protein? Is it a vitamin mineral crop? Is it a culinary and medicinal crop? Okay, so I've also added that stuff. And again, I've got 6 pages here, so it's crammed in. There's abbreviations used. It's all explained. So let's go from the top down. I ate one of my props, but here's the other one. So banana, again, as I said before, green bananas is a starch crop, not just the sugary sweet ones. Those are good too, but you know, the people who rely on this crop for food worldwide, they eat a lot of them cooked. There's lots of different varieties. Specific cooking varieties that may have nicer textures. Though I have used apple bananas, you know, making green banana fries. You can also just cook bananas whole like this. You can take them whole, peel and all, put them in a pan, put them in a pot with water, some oil, because the oil will keep because it's latex, it's sticky skin in green banana, right? Put the oil so you don't wreck your pan, and then just boil them right in the skin. And once it's boiled, you can just peel the skin right off, real easily. And then you can use that any way you'd use, you know, a boiled potato. You know, you can mash it after that. You can fry it. You can bake it.
What type of oil do you recommend?
Coconut oil.
Just a tiny
They're really
bit.
good in soup too.
They're really good in soup as well.
At what point would you harvest the green banana?
At what point would you harvest a green banana? Good question.
Before it gets
Usually when all the leaves have died on the stalk, it's a good indication it's getting close. And then sometimes you can tell by, you know, The ridges will go away, but some varieties obviously have ridges still. Let's see. So planting bananas. We use. So planting bananas is by division. Right? So this little baby plant is attached to the mom here. So we want to cut that down, separate this plant out. We're looking for plants like that. That's a sword sucker. This is a water shoot. This is the keiki you want, not this one. Okay? This is going to make a nice strong keiki. This is going to be a really weak, slow-growing keiki.
How do you tell the difference?
This one has a thin stem that goes straight down. This one has a big fat at the base, real narrow at the top, and then little sword-like leaves. Alright?
Also
So sword sucker is what this is called.
Also, the healthy ones, the good ones are shiny, and the water suckers are real
Again,
papery.
the stem
bark
on
is
these
very
is almost perfectly straight.
Not shiny.
The stem on these, it's fat. The fatter the base, the better the keiki. Tapering out like that. Okay? There are some banana diseases that can be transferred from keiki. So what people often do is they'll cut all of the roots off of that base. And people use machetes for this. You can trim all the roots off. And if you see any black spots, that can be weevil damage, nematode damage, you want to make sure all of that's removed. If there's too much of it, you shouldn't use the keiki, because you're just going to bring that disease into your new planting. Let's see what else.
So cutting the roots will help cut the disease?
Yeah, you cut the roots off, and people will even sometimes dip them in a diluted bleach solution. No. You just dip it in for like a couple minutes.
I mean, to eliminate the root.
To eliminate the roots? No, it doesn't.
Still root again.
It'll still root again, yep.
What ratio
Yeah,
of water?
it felt very extreme the first time I did it. But yeah, you can cut it down. People do it with machetes.
What ratio do you recommend for bleach to water?
Oh man, I can't remember. Anybody know the
Like 10%.
sterilization bleach ratio? 10%?
Yeah.
That sounds a little strong.
Like capful per gallon,
Huh?
kind of thing. That's like restaurant style. 1 cap to a gallon of
I'm
water.
not sure. You can find it online. So let's see what else. So the 9 to 18 months. A lot of this information that's written down, it's written down for you, so you're going to have it at home. So I've got a half an hour, or now probably like 25 minutes, to go over 100 plants with you guys. So I'm going to be focusing on the top 25, and I'm going to be focusing on kind of the tips and tricks that aren't included here. Okay, so I'm not going to go over kind of spacing, height, even like how long things take to produce. It's all right here for you to take home with you. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to go into extra stuff that's not on here. Coconut. But I will talk about this because we all love these, right? Drink them like this. But this isn't where the nutrition is in a coconut. It's right here. The fat content in a mature coconut. You can hear it shaking. You can hear the water shaking in there. You can use the sprouted ones as well. It changes very different nutritional content from a young coconut to a mature coconut. Very, very different. So when we're talking about coconut, this is what we're talking about, right? Coconut milk, coconut cream. So, and the traditional way is to shave this off, or you can also, we'll take a spike, a metal spike, bang it down, twist it, break the shell off, pull it off. See like little Thai ladies doing this, husking coconuts. And then, so once this is peeled, take the machete, pop, 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 breaks it right in half perfectly around the side there. And then you have a stool with a grater on it. You sit on the stool and you grate it. Now once that's grated, you press it, and you can make coconut cream that way. You can also use a Vitamix. You can also use a Champion juicer. You need to chop it into pieces first before you put it in there. Any other ways that people use to make coconut cream or coconut milk? Yeah.
There's a drill attachment from India that's far better than any of those other options.
A drill attachment from
20
India?
bucks sent from India, and it's amazing.
Do you mount it to something?
On my drill. It's a drill
It
bit,
just seems
and
a
it
little
has
like-
the cutter attachment. And
Okay.
again, I was with my Champion. I had to replace the blades because when it gets really good, it's like rock solid. So that was my best
Right,
that I
cool.
found.
Cool.
But
So I don't know if everybody heard that, but there's a drill, apparently a drill attachment you can put on your drill to do that.
Where do you get us?
From India, she ordered it.
Yeah, I found it on eBay. That
You know what
was
it's
the
called?
cheapest place. It's called a coconut shredder.
Coconut shredder.
Drill bit.
I mean, they have machines like that that
Yeah.
like sit on anything too, but they're probably pretty pricey.
You know what? It works almost as good as the machine. Honestly,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
They've
It
got a
does.
hand crank one too. It makes sense.
I use
it
it
seems
on
kind
my-
of dangerous to me, but maybe to mount it to something somehow. No.
Well, you could put it in a vise if you were really afraid.
Okay.
But no, seriously. But if you put it on a hammer drill, it's like 2 seconds. Like it's clear in 2 seconds on a hammer drill. So, but a regular old battery, you know, lightweight 9.2 volts, you'll still get it completely done in a minute.
Okay, nice.
But I do have some questions though,
Sure.
about the, okay, so with these more mature coconuts, are you leaving them on the tree till they drop? And
Yes.
then once they drop, how long do you kind of leave them on the ground? Like, do you have a time frame for that?
Doesn't really matter. I mean, eventually they'll start sprouting. You can still use them for oil once they've sprouted.
So there's no aging time, kind of like the pumpkin? It's like once it just drops from the tree, it's about as good as it's gonna get for its fat content?
Yeah, unless it's kind of still green a little bit. I would let it get completely brown like that before I used it.
Can they go bad?
They can go bad occasionally.
And Wade, I wanted to add something
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
I don't know how many people like to make smoothies in the morning, but a coconut milk base is the way to go before you even start. And what Wade's brown coconut there, you know, getting it open and taking the chunks and breaking them up and putting them in a Vitamix with some water, blending it up, and then using one of these guys.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is a
use
paint
strainer
strainer.
bag. Thank
And you
you.
just strain it right through there, and it takes like less than 5 minutes to make your coconut soup base. And you can make soup, you can make smoothies. This is the secret right here. So a paint strainer.
Get coconut oil out of it?
It does, but it's just diluted with water. It's just,
Yeah, and so coconut oil, that's kind of a whole nother process of refining that. I'd say, you know, use it like it is. Use the coconut milk. I mean, you know, to go to that other step is a huge process. Yeah.
So you're saying the nutrition isn't really in the keikis, even though they're really good for hydration and for electrolyte replacement?
Yes. Yeah, the primary nutrition, the oil content.
But
It's in
eating
the
the
mature
jelly and drinking keikis?
That's still good. That's still all good. I'm not saying don't do that.
Right.
I'm saying the primary nutrition is in the mature nuts.
And what about the sprouted ones? They have a lot of nutrition too?
Yeah.
The cotton candy?
Yeah, and especially that layer inside there. You know how oily,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
So
the meat gets.
eating
in
that
the-
meat as well.
And that layer gets, yeah.
So if you've got green coconuts
Yeah.
and you let them sit for a couple of weeks, they'll tend to go sour.
Right.
So what's the difference of having green coconuts that will turn into oil nuts?
Right. Let them ripen on the tree. They'll naturally fall off the tree when they're ready, usually.
Okay, so if you pick them off the
If
ground,
you,
then,
I mean, sometimes a tree will drop nuts that just aren't ready, right?
okay,
And then those won't ripen.
but normally, if you pick a green coconut off the tree, then it's a green coconut, but if it's fallen, usually it got to a point where it won't be sour. Is that how it works?
Usually, yes, ideally. I mean, if it turns brown and it shakes, it's good to go. If it doesn't, if it's all funky looking on the end, then you know it's not good. So, and just a little bit about spacing. The coconut tree gets 30 foot wide. How far does it need to be from the next coconut tree? I like 40-foot spacing on coconuts. For plantations, they say 20 feet you can do. But 40-foot spacing makes it so the fronds are not touching each other. If the fronds are touching, they're banging against each other. It's constantly, slightly injuring the tree. Also, if you have a wide spacing like that, the trees go straight up. If you have trees that are really close together, they lean right out. So if you're going to try to climb those trees with the climber, it makes it extremely difficult or impossible. Also, coconut trees create really dappled shade. When they get that tall, if they're just dropping their fruit, you can pick it up from the ground. You don't have to do any work. You just walk up to the tree and pick up fruit off the ground. That's efficiency. Right?
Look up.
And if the tree is way up there, it's creating very light shade, so you can grow a lot of other things around underneath that tree. Okay, so we've got our coconut overstory, and then we've got our understory of ulu, avocado, you know, all these other plants. Yeah.
In nature, it seems like coconut trees grow in clumps.
They do, because they drop their coconuts around them, and then that's what sprouts.
Yeah, but I'm sure that they're healthy.
They may be, but they may not be easy to climb. And they may create a lot of dense shade in a big clump like that that's not as usable to plant other plants in around.
How safe is it having your ulu trees under coconut trees?
It's nice to have it. It's nice to have it spaced out far enough. And also around coconut trees, I like to plant some kind of a bed around the bases, so you're not walking directly under it, like like an 8-foot radius all the way around the bed, so you're not constantly walking right underneath a coconut tree that could drop coconuts on.
But what would you put in the bed if you don't want to be?
Things that can take a coconut falling on them. Things I'd eat, sure. There's lots of ground covers here. So we've got, let's see. So
Aren't you setting yourself up for being hit on the head if you're planting stuff that you're going to be down on your head and these harvesting?
I don't spend a lot of time. It's not something I spend a lot of time there.
If you worry about it, put your bike helmet on the
Put a bike.
Yeah, put a helmet on. There you go. I mean, I spend maybe like, a minute under the bed in a year.
My brother has a 70-foot durian and he has a shield. He's usually from traffic on it because we can't walk under the tree without one.
And the bed will be long established before the coconut is established.
Okay, so any other quick questions on coconuts? Yeah.
If people don't want to use a spike, I have access to a coconut husker. It's really easy to do from machete, so it's pretty much not damaging your body.
Okay.
So it allows people who are not physically able to pack it apart to use some leather.
Yeah, he says he's got some kind of a special tool. You can talk to him afterwards about that. Okay, so moving on, ulu. All right, this is a great carb crop. Okay, lives a long time. They can get really tall. It's good to prune them to keep them harvestable. Okay, this goes with pretty much all the trees on this list. If you see something that says 50, 60 feet, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to let it get that tall. Okay. There's also a link here to ulu propagation or breadfruit propagation or production guide, I think it's called, and it tells you how to prune the trees, how to use the fruit, all that information. So I highly recommend checking it out. It's a free download. Gives you all information on Lulu.
But it's a not so studio for 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry.
that link is on your, that link is on your.
That link's on here in the back.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, it's trying to.
So Ulu, excellent. You can use the fruit. You know, cooked as a starch.
Or let it ripen on the tree for another way to use it.
You can let it ripen and cook it there. Raw, it's a purgative. So don't eat Ulu raw. Unless you want to throw up. Oh, the Samoan kind you can eat raw?
Yeah, after it's soft.
After it gets really soft. Because I've had friends who were like, oh yeah, you can eat this, and then ate it, and then... So it's the Samoan kind only, huh?
Oh,
Yeah, and it's so soft.
if it's sweet.
I eat mine raw all the time.
You eat yours raw all the time?
Well, I mean, I'll do ulu pancakes.
But Ulu Pang, you're cooking it.
But the inside is still raw.
No.
But it is sweet.
Anyways, let's move on. There's lots of ways to use them. Check out the production guide. It's excellent. There's just so much information on them.
Can you tell us what FS means and PHS?
It's in the beginning of the thing. It's on the page before.
What's his name? Okay, God, thank you.
So avocado, really great fat crop. Have different seasons. You need different trees for different seasons to get them year round, right? Also, another one you want to prune if you want to be able to harvest the fruit. If you let them drop, you can do that as well, but you got to have some soft ground, and you also got to beat the pigs to them if you got pigs and rats. Okay, so keeping your trees pruned down, 20, 25 feet, so you're still reaching with a picker. Grafted trees. I highly recommend getting grafted trees because you know what season it's going to be, you know the quality of the fruit. You can do seedling trees as well, but they're highly variable. Just because you plant the seed from this avocado, there's an excellent avocado, doesn't mean that's what that seed is going to produce.
And you've waited 5 to 10 years.
And you've waited 5 to 10 years to find out, right? So why put all that effort into a tree that, if you've got like a zone 5, you've got a lot of area, throw those pits out, sure, see what happens. If you have some bad ones, cut them down. But if you've got a limited area or in closer, I highly recommend grafted trees. But also make sure you're covering your bases of getting that year-round production.
Question?
Yeah.
Is there a difference between shiny and matte on the avocado when you're harvesting? I've heard different things about that.
I'm not really sure. Anybody else?
When they get mature, they're supposed to get more matte, and then the stem is supposed to start to turn brown.
Yeah.
And if you pick it before that, oftentimes it won't ripen.
So the stem turning brown, that's the main indicator that I've heard of before. For if the stem is brown, then you can pick it and it'll still ripen up. Whereas if it's a stem that's still completely green, probably won't.
In lower elevations, Kahulu avocados are beyond amazing.
Lower elevations, Kahalulu, awesome. Fairly short season though, right?
It's worth it.
It's worth it though.
They're a summer variety.
Super high fat content. There's different fat contents for avocados as well. So this is another reason to get grafted trees, because you'll know what you're getting, because there's a huge range as far as the fat content in avocados.
When do you need to graft? Like, should I wait 5 years and then go, oh, these avocados aren't good, and cut the tree and graft them?
You can. That's called top working. You can cut the top of that tree off and then graft to it. There's a couple different ways people do it. I don't want to get too far into that, but look it up.